It's the mid-year book Freakout Tag 2023 edition, so let's dive right in with question 1. What is the best book that you've read this year? Hands down, without a doubt, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which frankly is a bit of a surprise for me because Barbara Kingsolver and I have never gotten along in the past before. I think I've started and stopped the Poisonwood Bible at least twice, and I've pulled the chute on Animal, Vegetable, Mineral even faster. But I saw it in the Little Free Library down the road from me, sitting face out, mint condition. It didn't even look like the spine had been broken. It's sitting there amongst the dog-eared and tattered Jeffrey Deavers and Jodi Picots, and it stood like a beacon. I knew I had to pick it up. And not without a little bit of trepidation, I dove right in. Turns out, loved it. This would go on to win the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, sharing the prize with Hernan Diaz's Trust. And I don't know how closely it hews to the original David Copperfield, having never read any Dickens at all. Horrors, I know. But I still love the singular voice of the narrator, Demon Copperhead, who from the moment he is spit out on the vinyl flooring of his backwoods mobile home, still trapped in the amniotic sac, Demon's had it rough. He has pinballed through the foster care system. He's gone to work cutting tobacco and sorting garbage. And just when things look like they're going his way, blows his knees out playing football, develops a crippling opioid addiction. And through it all, Demon Copperhead knows what the rest of the world thinks of him and his ilk. He's nothing more than a redneck, white trash, dumbass hillbilly. But he's here to say there's more to his story than that. Love the pure storytelling magic of this. Easily favorite book I've read this year. So much so it almost has me wanting to read the original David Copperfield. Almost. Number 2, best sequel you've read so far? Usually I whiff on this particular question. I'm not a big series reader. My library is just filled with the first book of series. But ever since I read Cixin Liu's The Three-Body Problem, I knew I was eventually going to get to the second book. The Dark Forest isn't exactly high literature. There is this completely unnecessarily and long section in the middle that's basically about some Asian dude's waifu that reads like incel fanfic, complete with cliched and literal fridging of the wife to motivate further action. Despite all of that, I love the idea that Cixin Liu brings to his books, this time wall facers and galactic curses. Even more so now that Netflix has announced the release date of January 2024 for the TV adaptation. I know it's only a matter of time before I finish the trilogy with Death's End. Number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. Now, S.A. Cosby's Razorblade Tears felt like one of those inevitable reads. This thing had legs. Long after the initial marketing push, I was still seeing it everywhere. So I finally eventually broke down, got to it, and loved it. This year, S.A. Cosby returns with All the Sinners Bleed, which is about a black sheriff investigating a school shooting when he uncovers something more. And again, it's riding on the momentum of Razorblade Tears, big initial marketing push, but again, it's going to get pushed off to the periphery. I'm going to forget about it. I'm just not even going to think about it. And then, end of the year, it's going to make a bunch of best of lists. I'll be reminded of it again and then pick it up. So I'm projecting sometime around November for this particular read. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. It's been a great year for Korean American authors. I finished and really enjoyed Gina Chung's Sea Change as well as Jimin Han's The Apology. Looking out into autumn, I'm really excited to get Happiness Falls from Angie Kim. I loved her earlier work, Miracle Creek, which I reviewed here on the channel when it was released back in 2019. There's also What We Kept to Ourselves from Nancy Joo-yeon Kim, who wrote the last story of Minha Lee, which was a Reese Book Club pick. Didn't quite land as strongly with me, but I'm still excited to check out her follow-up. And if we go all the way out into November, we have Ed Park. I've never read him before, with a revisionist history story called Same Bed, Different Dreams. Can't wait. Again, a super strong year for Korean American authors and so many great things to look forward to. Number 5, biggest disappointment. I've been a fan of Heather Havrilowski ever since she was writing back at suck.com along with the illustrations of one Terry Colon. This was an era where Heather Havrilowski, along with Mimi Spartypants and a whole host of other writers, defined an entire era of online writing for me. Before the advent of the endless scroll of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, I would spend at least 30 minutes of every morning going through my different blogs. And I've been chasing that blogging high ever since. I had high hopes for her earlier work, What If This Were Enough? But I found that Heather was clearly struggling with the longer form. And then Foreverland. I thought Heather would have the perfect snarky voice to tackle the divine tedium of marriage, as it's suggested in the byline. But then the writing was just predictable once again. This classic sitcom setup where you enter into the chapter and it is complete chaos, murderous thoughts, apocalyptic disarray, and barely contained fury directing it at this walking heap of laundry that Heather irrationally decided to marry some 15 years ago and have 2 kids with. All sound and fury. Eventually she would cool, get thoughtful, and realize that she's in fact with her most favorite human on the planet. That, of course, would be a short-lived realization because we would open to the next chapter with more gnashing of teeth, rending of hair, and an earth-shattering crisis of faith. And taken on its own, each chapter, tightened up, would probably make some killer blog posts, spread out over a couple months, interspersed with other blogs that I would read, probably would love it, but collected together in a singular book just didn't work, it couldn't carry. And maybe it's unfair to keep seeking that blogging high and expecting Havrilowski to deliver in this completely different medium. Nonetheless, still, big disappointment for me this time. Number 6, biggest surprise. I'd argue that Emily St. John Mandel as well as Celeste Ng are consistently good literary fiction writers. Their books are always consistently good. Not great, not blow your socks off, but really, really good. No small feat. Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng is easily my favorite Celeste Ng book so far. And I did a review of it on the channel some time ago. TLDR, it's a story of a biracial boy embarking on a quest to find his lost mother in the midst of a near-future America fueled by anti-Chinese sentiment. There's nods to residential schools and the long and continuing history of anti-Asian hate, as well as the uneven distribution of awful in these dystopian worlds. But the biggest surprise was Celeste Ng's reference in the endnotes to a 1978 essay from Václav Havel called The Power to the Powerless, which speaks to the impact an individual's action can have against long-established systems that seem impervious to change, which kind of timely. As we wrestle with how to move forward in this, what seems the worst timeline, it is comforting. It is hopeful to realize that there is a way forward, that individual action can have an impact. Biggest surprise, really you should check this essay out as well. Number 7, favorite new author. Eleanor Catton isn't exactly an unknown quantity. Her 2013 book, The Luminaries, would go on to win the Booker Prize, making her, then 28, the youngest author to win the prize. Would go on to make a bunch of best of lists, get turned into a miniseries, obviously very well known. But it wasn't until this year's release of Birnam Wood, referencing my favorite Shakespearean play of all time and generating a ton of bookish buzz, that I decided to find out a little bit more about this Canadian-born Kiwi. Birnam Wood is about a punk eco-collective up against a mustache-twirling billionaire who has plans inside of plans, but frankly, I could care less about the plot. I want just Catton living within the heads of her characters. I have not found another author that writes about the interiority of her characters better than Catton. There is the married couple that have been married for decades that are having guests over, and sort of all the knowing looks and things that are unsaid, the subtle motivations of the conversations, the rural feints, and the difference between what is said and what is actually meant, as well as the 2 founding members of the Eco Collective, realizing that perhaps there isn't a future for both of them going forward, and how they're going to tackle the "it's not you, it's me" sort of creative breakup that seems inevitable, or the mansplaining Bob Woodward wannabe with his anti-capitalist screed directed at the collective, contrasted with his internal monologue as he's chasing what he imagines to be a massive scoop. I mean, this plot, which gets really potboilery, seems irrelevant, frankly got in the way. I just want to read pages of Catton living in the heads of characters as they go through the mundane day-to-day challenges of their lives. Just no one seems to do it better. Love that about this book. Number 8, newest fictional crush. The alpha male wrasse slowly, fabulously transitioning into a female as they swim amongst the underwater volcanic spires, fully embracing their I don't give a energy and advocating for pufferfish threesomes, and during the spawning moon, partaking in some ecstatic clam bukkake. Just wild, completely unnecessary to the overall plot of this book, Laylene Paul's Pod, which was shortlisted for the Bailey's Women's Prize for Fiction. Just wild. I had a blast reviewing and skewering, frankly, this book in an earlier video. Not like me. Usually I just talk about books that I love, but I could not help it. It was a lot of fun to shoot and easily my favorite character of the year. Number 9, newest favorite character. All right, full disclosure, this year, not a great year as far as reading goes. It's not the quality of the books. It's not that I've had reading slumps. It's just I haven't been reading as much as I normally do. Our company is returning to trade shows and conferences, in-person trade shows and conferences. We're reaching pre-pandemic levels of travel, and I'm hitting the road more and more, which is not to say that you can't read while you're traveling, but frankly, the trade show grind isn't exactly conducive to settling in with a good book at the end of the day, as opposed to, I don't know, collapsing in a wrinkled heap on your hotel bed in the hopes of getting a few hours of sleep before getting up to do it again the next day. So, TLDR, horrifyingly, here at the halfway point of the year, I have not read a lot, so indulge me a little bit of recency bias as I join the chorus of voices that tell you that Season 2 of The Bear is absolutely fantastic. Season 1 of The Bear was so great, even if I did not exactly love the Deus Ex Machina of the season finale, and I wasn't sure how it would lead to a good Season 2. I needn't have worried. Season 2 is streets ahead, and a big part of that is Ebon Moss-Bachrach's cousin Richie, who is absolutely fantastic in Season 1. But Season 2, the episode Forks, his character makes a hard pivot, and I can't stop thinking about it. I am obsessed. Ebon Moss-Bachrach is one of those character actors that completely disappears into his role. He has already been in the Marvel universe as well as the Star Wars universe, playing Micro against Barenthal's Punisher, as well as one of the rebels on Andor. Anyway, so good in this show. I can't wait to see what's in store for Cousin Richie in Season 3, and I can't wait to see what Ebon Moss-Bachrach has in store as an actor in the future. Number 10, book that made you cry. Again, indulge me. I'm going to lean into some more of this bear content because Season 2 is just so good. Having Forks follow fishes, where the stunt casting for that particular episode is guaranteed to win an Emmy for at least one of its actors, to the final episode where you find that Richie has totally been paying attention, debating what it takes to be an art monster and what you have to give up for the sake of your craft, your creativity, and how family, for better or worse, really define and shape your identity. Didn't make me cry, but totally got me in the feels. Love this season of The Bear. Number 11, book that made you happy. All right, so there's a bit of happy dominoes here, so play along. We'll start with Lucky Hank, which is from the producers of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and features Bob Odenkirk as the titular Hank. This is based on the novel Straight Man by Richard Russo, which I picked up and really enjoyed. This is basically your typical affluent, middle-aged white guy having some low-stakes crisis that seems to dominate much of the Western canon. Sure, Hank's a bumbling dick and surrounded by women who are all seen as objects of lust, but still a lot of bookish fun if white guy literary farce were a genre. Not too demanding, following certain tropes, but couldn't help but put a smile on my face. Then we have the final domino, which is the story editor and writer for the TV show is one Jean Kyung Fraser. She's also the writer for the Ali Wong, Stephen Young Netflix joint, Beef. This is significant because I absolutely love Jean Kyung Fraser's debut in 2020, Pizza Girl, that features a queer Korean-American pizza delivery girl that is an absolute mess. I just love to see how her career has progressed, and I love to see what she's doing now. Totally makes me happy. Number 12, most beautiful book that you've bought this year. In reviewing Jin-Woo Chang's Flux, I called it a collection of vibes. It is time travel by way of Theranos. It is the Flash origin story. It's Star-Lord's love of David Hasselhoff. It's Short Round and Magic Cereal. It's all of those and none of those at the same time. Just vibes, man. It's a vague sort of story that really sticks with you. And the other thing that really sticks with you is the absolutely fantastically designed cover from one Besta M. Doohan. Number 13, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I guess this is different from question 4, your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Like you anticipate them, but you're not going to read them. So maybe this is just implying that this has to be a backlist title. Okay, fine. So recently, I was at the little free library down the road and I picked up this latest book, which probably has the worst cover imaginable. Movie tie-in covers are bad, but this is especially egregious. And it's not only that, it is the choice of font for Rebecca that just frankly leaves me gobsmacked, has me thinking that this is a story of a female sleeper assassin that's reactivated when her former handler and lover is found mysteriously killed. Rebecca, out for revenge. Anyway, I've heard a lot of great things about this, favorite of many, many people, so I'm looking forward to reading it. And honestly, it's from the same little free library that gave me Demon Copperhead, so I think my odds are pretty darn good. That's it. The mid-year book Freakout Tag 2023 edition. Not a lot of books to draw from in my pool, but did what I could. Anyway, the second half of the year isn't exactly looking much better. There's still a ton of trade shows on the docket at work, which means I'm going to be traveling quite a bit again, which is really going to impact my numbers as far as reading goes. But fine. That's fine. Fine. Anyway, I've been on Threads. Maybe you can find me on there. Try it out. Honestly, it still feels strangely, even with tens of millions of people, cozy, intimate. It's like Twitter in the early days. I'm Dajin at Threads. Come find me before it comes a complete dumpster fire and ads and Nazis and just, I don't know, misinformation and all the garbage that Twitter now is home to comes over to Threads. Anyway, that's it for me this week. I hope you have a great week of reading, and we'll talk to you again soon.